Okay, I'd like to end this review and go over some of my findings. Once again, these are my individual findings. I'm not paid by Flame Boss for anything. I'm just doing this to help other people get maybe a baseline understanding of the product. One of the first things I looked at is user documentation. And to me, user documentation was kind of slim at best. There were some pictorial representations here, but to me it's too brief. How you actually fit the guards on your Kamado is kind of sketchy at best. Setting up the network, the steps followed is kind of sketchy. From even discussions I had this week with the folks from Flame Boss, they look to be doing more YouTube video as far as helping people understand the operations and the setup of this tool, which will be very welcomed. Next thing I'd like to talk about is the network setup process. Had some concerns with it because there's really no, once again, it goes back to the documentation. For me, it was a little bit more intuitive. I think if you're not technically inclined, I think you're going to run into some issues. Just follow some of the steps I outlined earlier, and hopefully you'll be fine. If you run into any problems, give the folks from Flame Boss a call, and they will help walk you through it. Now, the next thing I would say is the actual equipment setup, for a cook. That's actually using the actual guards and how to mount this, and assuming you've already connected your network to the device, that's pretty straightforward. Then I'll jump into the operations. I was very impressed with the intelligence of the device, where if you set your temperatures, let's say at 250, there's intelligence as far as the variable speed of the fan. Sometimes you would think if it's too low, it should actually just continue to push air. In some cases, it won't. So there's some, it expects the actual pit to kick up its temps. If not, after a certain amount of time, the actual fan will come on at a varying rate, maybe 6%, 15%, 25%, up to 100% if need be. So it's good in that it conserves fuel. It doesn't spike the actual pit too high where it actually has to climb down. So I was very impressed with the operations of the actual fan. Next thing I would say is the iPhone mobile application which I used. In the least, I'd say I was disappointed. Two reasons. One, sometimes it was not intuitive as far as, how do you end a cook from previously? How do you start a new one? I actually had to call Flame Boss this past week to understand it. After you scroll down from your screen, you go down to commentary, and then way down below, there's something that says "and cook" that is kind of grayed out. So that's a hard way to actually let people know that how do you end a cook, because it constantly just reviewed to the one cook that I had from 2 days prior. So at a minimum, that part of the application needs to be strengthened. Another part which I found to be critical is with the iPhone, I ran into a situation where the temp of the meat plateaued at 137, and I need to get to about $155, and it stayed there. Fortunately for my wife, she encouraged me to check the temperature, and it actually was at 155. Lo and behold, somewhere along the line, I don't know if it was with my network, I don't know if it was Flame Boss's environment or with my iPhone, but it lost the connection. And when you look at the app, there's no way for the user to know if it's actually connected, because it actually referenced in the upper right-hand corner online. So if you had a big cook you were depend upon the application to guide you, you would have burned up your meat. So I mentioned it to the folks from Flame Boss. That's a problem. The other problem that I see related to the application is you cannot do anything not on the internet. You have to be connected to the internet. And that's a real issue. If you don't have access to the internet, that adds additional layers of complexity, and it restricts your ability to be able to do a cook where you don't have internet access. So looking at that, that's a major downfall with this tool, because you can start a cook at your home, and for whatever reason your cable provider drops its internet feed to your home and you're at a loss. What do? There's no other device that you can actually see where temps are, let's say with the Flame Boss 300, so you can actually monitor what temps are. You don't. You actually have to depend upon a non-descriptive device, and you have to review it on your, say, your iPhone or Android device all the time. So that to me is a major hole in the design of the product. Lastly, I would say the overall impressions. I was pleased when everything is working as needed. It was a learning curve because I think documentation or lack thereof made it a little bit of a challenge. And I think Flame Boss acknowledges that, and they will actually put together some YouTube videos and maybe some additional content beyond what they provide here. Now, this is pertaining to a Kamado, and these are what I call the missing pieces. One, the pit temperature cannot exceed 450 degrees. Now, and I understand for traditionally low and slow cooks were the rule of the day. More people are actually using their cooking devices such as a Kamado to cook breads, pizzas, whereby you need to be above 500 degrees. So basically, this tool is useless when you want to try to cook pizza or breads or anything where you have high temp. I mentioned that to the folks from Flame Boss this week. They gave me some word that they're going to explore looking for higher temperature probes, but it doesn't appear to be anything imminent. I mentioned to you about the need to be able to use this tool in a local Wi-Fi environment. If this is a Wi-Fi controller, there should be no reason where you can't just control the device without being connected to the internet, just to use your iPhone, for example, locate the local device in your Wi-Fi settings. I think that should be a simple change. I'm not sure why Flame Boss is resisting making that change. Talk to you about documentation, YouTube training videos would be very helpful. And lastly, refine the mobile app. And if they had easier to read, end and start, new cook buttons, make it a little bit more visible to the end user would be a plus. And without a doubt, you need to know if you're connected, and you should be able to hit some kind of an icon to press and once again verify that your Flame Boss 400 does have internet connectivity, and it should loop all the way through to your iPhone device telling you that I got current information from your device, which I did not have laid into my cook. So there are a couple of the key observations. Hopefully this will help you in your review of what you want to do. But I see a lot of upside with it, but they got to fill in some of the gaps to make it beneficial and useful. Thank you.